What's up, guys? I am back today with Ravon, the PM intern here at Microsoft, who is working on a very cool project called WalkMe. And so for those of you that aren't familiar with WalkMe, it's a system that will guide you through a piece of software, kind of like an overlay. It's tutorials, right? Am I right about that, Ravon?
Yes, and so I guess I think a little bit about WalkMe. And so say if you don't know a product or a tool, what WalkMe does, it actually pops up and it kind of gives you some information. So you can kind of imagine like WalkMe as your map. And like as you go from different places within Flow, it will kind of guide you and kind of give you some supporting details to help you get there. So
The map, like
yeah,
Dora. I'm the
yeah,
map, I'm the map, I'm
yeah,
the map, I'm the map.
yeah.
Okay, awesome. So a little bit about Ravon. Ravon is 23. She's from St. Louis, Missouri. She goes to Missouri Science and Tech, Missouri S&T. That's how people know it, she says. And she is a super volunteer. Like, I have just, like, every time I talk to her, she's talking about something else she's doing to help kids, camps and conferences and hackathons and all sorts of things, anything to help kids, right?
Yes, yeah, no, you have to give back to little kids. I definitely feel like it. Like I'm really big on like when I was growing up, I really wanted to be an engineer, but I didn't see any other people that looked like an engineer like me. And so I decided when I got older that I wanted to make sure that I was a face so that when other like little girls are like saying, oh, I want to be an engineer, oh, I want to be in science, oh, I want to be in technology, they see representation because that's super duper important. It's like helping you get there.
I love that. That is awesome. All right. Well, Ravon, I'm going to go ahead and let you start presenting. Go ahead and take the floor. And so, Ravon, for those of you guys that don't know what we're doing here, she's going to walk us through her intern project, which is Walk Me Inside of Flow. So you're getting a feature preview here. This is not in production yet. By the time this video comes out, we may have it in production. We may be closer, but just know we're filming this video right now in at the end of July, and it's going to come out in September. You're seeing this in September, likely.
Yeah. So do you see yourself?
I see me.
All
Yes.
right,
Okay.
awesome. So we're getting we're cooking with bacon. So let's go back out. And so let's see, edit. And so just so you know, kind of a little bit about WalkMe and what makes WalkMe so awesome. So over the summer, I did a lot of research on kind of like who is like the users that use Flow. And so the thing that we kind of found out is that a lot of people have so many practical uses for Flow, but if you just don't know how to use it, it can become a hard tool because like say if you are a developer, for example, you're used to kind of seeing lines of code and like you want to be able to code and interact with it. Well, Flow's not that kind of tool. Or say if you're a non-technical person and you say you want to come into Flow, Flow is really awesome because it's kind of like you see it has these boxes right here and there's so many templates. There's literally like if we go back out here to the templates, there are like thousands, like not necessarily thousands, but like hundreds of templates that are kind of a part of Flow. And so the next question is, and you're like, okay, well, there's all these templates, but say if, I'm not necessarily familiar with Flow, say I'm not necessarily even familiar with coding, I get to a template and then I'm like, okay, what's next? Because, Flow uses kind of like, I would say, a special logic that you see within like, computer science and development. But at the same time, it's not as like, I would say intuitive. So like a lot of times, like I would see Flow as something similar to Scratch, which is like a kid's tool where it's kind of like you drag and you drop, but you have to understand the logic behind it.
Yep.
And so, where does WalkMe kind of come into all this? And so what WalkMe is doing and like kind of where my intern project lays at is it's allowing people who might not be as familiar with Flow to be able to kind of jump in and kind of have like some handholding kind of within their first experience.
Cool.
And so I'm going to kind of go and just start the demo. I'm going to walk you kind of guys through a little bit of it. It's a short demo. We have 8 other templates that cover from approvals to power apps to just some other, I would say, notifications, just because these are kind of the things that new users are kind of jumping into. And so with further ado, I'm going to show you guys kind of what WalkMe is.
Cool.
So first we have to go and press the play button. For you guys don't have to press the play button. It will pop right up. But the first thing that it does, it kind of goes and it says, this is a trigger. And so a lot of times within Flow has like a very unique vocabulary. Like I feel like sometimes learning Flow for me when I first started using it was like a totally different world because like I kind of knew what a trigger was, but I didn't understand it in the context of what, flow is. And it's super duper duper important to understand that. And so the
Mm-hmm.
first thing it kind of does is it pops out and it says, hey, this is a trigger. A trigger starts an event. Well, say if you wanted to create your own flow from scratch, this is extremely important because if you didn't know that you wanted to, use a trigger, you might not go in there and you might not understand the difference between the two. So that is just something I really wanted to pop out, as well as, some people might not know, but best practice is to only use one trigger when you're creating a flow, unless you're creating something complex for that. So it kind of pops out and it shows you this. And so the next thing is it kind of takes you a little bit further and it kind of relates and it ties in what a trigger is into like what the actual trigger that we're using. So we're using an RSS feed. And something else I wanted to make sure is that people kind of understood what that is. And so an RSS feed, it's pretty much a way that like when people like post content, so say when John's posting something online, you could be able to go in and like kind of grab that content and have it send you a notification. And so I wanted to make sure that you guys kind of knew that so you guys can kind of stay up to date on kind of what's happening with Flow, because Flow is just this crazy tool that so many things are happening within it. And so like next you go, of course, you press the next button. And this is an extremely important thing that like when I started, using Flow, like you go to these templates and like, I didn't even recognize that, these templates are really awesome, but if you don't, click in the box, you can't customize it for yourself. And
Yep.
so this is just something that I thought was super important to kind of pull out. And the cool thing I feel like about Flow templates is that they're templates. And so once you kind of have a template, you can kind of push anything in there. So say, for example, I'm really into food blogs. And so instead of, if I don't want to stay up to date with Flow, because, I get that like sometimes having so much technology thrown at you can be a lot, you could go and put almost any blog link, anything in there that empowers you kind of to go in and just stay up to date. And so the cool thing about this trigger is it kind of goes and it grabs that information for you or it says, hey, like, we see that you need this. And so every time it updates on that website, it's grabbing those things for you. And so from there, of course, you can go in and press next. And so the next thing is kind of the action. And so Flow kind of has like this really cool relationship between triggers and actions. And so like, the trigger is kind of like, the start. So that's kind of how you start. And the action is like what you're doing, like once you start. And understanding that piece is super duper important because like, you don't want to have a whole bunch of starts with no actions or a whole bunch of actions, but you never started. Because if you're doing that, like your flow is never really going to run properly or to its full scale. So understanding those types of things. One big thing to always recognize is that your flow can have as many actions as you want it to have, because it's always important that I feel like as you're going through life, you're going to keep doing things. And so like, why not keep our flow as active as possible?
So it can have
Yeah.
up to 255
Wow.
actions actually. That's
Wow.
the max number.
Wow. So up to 255. I feel like that's a lot of actions. That's a lot of things to do in a day.
That's a lot.
Yeah. So it's extremely important that I kind of have those things. And so kind of like with this action is like a push notification. And the reason why I decided to do a push notification is because I feel like we live in a really busy world. And for me, like if I don't get notifications about something, I will forget. Like completely forget. So I
Mm-hmm.
even have notifications like on my calendar telling me like when do I need to be in a meeting, when do I need to leave for a meeting. Sometimes I even have notifications when I need to eat because
When you need to eat.
yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Well, because it's like everything, like, great thing. Like, I live in Seattle and there's just so many things going on. And so, like, I'll be sitting down, I'll be working, I'll be doing like 20 other things. And then I'll be like, oh my gosh, it's 10 p.m. I haven't eaten yet. So, the notifications thing is definitely something that, adds to it. And so kind of within here, of course, I would say always check out the boxes, like inside the boxes, because you can kind of go in and further customize them. And so
Yeah.
kind of within here, it kind of gives you some information about, like it says, like enter like the text, the links, and the labels to kind of further customize it. So it can kind of tell you, it can send you links, it can send you all these extra things that you kind of need to kind of make it for you. And I think this stuff is extremely important to kind of understand this, because a lot of times when I see people, create flows, they kind of just keep things as they are. They try to customize it as little bit as possible. But what this does, it allows you to kind of say, this is what information I want to see. And so say if like you get a whole bunch of notifications that say like my blog, like you're probably less likely to answer them because they just say my blog. But if it just says something, specific or unique to you, it
Mm-hmm.
allows you to go and do that. So from
Mm-hmm.
there, of course, you press next, and it kind of has some, I would say, best practices of things you do. So, of course, you always, always, always like save your flows. When I've actually first started like on the flow team, like I don't know, like everybody knows it's like best practice to save in like Microsoft Word or like in PowerPoint, but like I don't know, I just felt like flow was self-saving, and it's just not. And so you always have to make sure that you go and you save it. The next thing I think that's really awesome about flow, and I think a lot of you guys know, is like it has like a flow checker or something that says like, hey, like let's go through and like make sure like what you're doing is correct. Since I didn't make any specific, like changes in here since we did the demo, I know there shouldn't be any errors. And so going out and popping out. The last thing, and this is really, really important to do, is to go and like actually test your flow, because it's like you're not really knowing if it's working or if it's not working unless you go and you test it. And so you can test based off like, your this specific trigger action, or you can go and use previous data from previous runs. And I think that this is something that makes flow very, very, very unique. So next I'm going to go and I'm going to pull out something that's dealing specifically within Power Apps. So 1 second, you guys. And so just so you guys know, I feel like for those of you guys who don't know about Power Apps, I feel like Power Apps is a very, very, very awesome tool, because it allows you to go and build apps within, like without having a whole bunch of technical like background and things like that. But then I think the really awesome thing is now you can create flow buttons within Power Apps. And so now you can kind of have them linked together, which I think is absolutely awesome, because I feel like all these different tools, like they all empower you to do work, better and quicker and easier. And I'm like really big on that because I always have a lot of things to do on my
So
plate.
let me interrupt you real quick here. I want to kind of point out something that's happening. So on the left side here, you can kind of see this menu that comes up, this WalkMe menu. What you're seeing is her builder experience. So this is kind of how you author WalkMes, which I think I'm going to actually ask you to show us a little bit of that after. But I wanted to point out the difference here. So you'll see this is her experience. You won't see any of this as a user. We're actually going to build all this stuff into the UI. So now when she clicks play on that one, and you kind of and it starts up here inside. So now this right here is where you as a user will kind of walk into the experience. This will actually be built into the Flow portal, and you won't have to click on the tutorials or any of that. We'll just know when you land in this place, we're going to serve up this WalkMe. And so this is actually right here what you're seeing, that menu. These are the WalkMes she built. And now what you're experiencing here is how that will actually play out inside of the Flow portal. I just wanted to make sure that that was clear for everybody.
Yes, no, and he's totally right. And just one little thing that I do want to ask is that these WalkMes, or these, like, I would say guided learning experiences, will pretty much only pop up for your first time coming in there. So if you're not a person that needs them every single time, you won't be overwhelmed with pop-ups and different things as you're trying to do your work. It's definitely for new users who are new to the experience, because we want to empower everybody to kind of be able to use these tools.
Awesome.
So, and so the next one I have is Power Apps. And so I know like Power Apps is kind of the big thing that's on the rise within Flow, and a lot of
Oh
people are
yeah, this audience definitely knows Power Apps.
yeah. And so we wanted to make sure that we kind of gave you guys some support in this area too as well. And so, of course, like as a new user, I already kind of explained what the trigger piece was. But I would say something very unique about Power Apps is that if you don't have the Power Apps trigger, and so if you don't have the Power Apps button within Flow, it doesn't work. And so it won't work on your Power Apps. And so this is something that is kind of, I feel like, extremely important that people need to know and understand. Because if you don't, if you create a flow, but your flow doesn't have the Power Apps button, you're not, you get me, like you're not creating something that's actually going to work. It's not going to be scalable for you. And so that's just a key point. I just wanted to make sure that I pushed out for it. And so the next one is we talk about approvals, and I feel like approvals are kind of like the new big thing that is kind of popping up within the flow world, because I think it's something extremely awesome that you can create a flow and send out approvals to a whole bunch of different people. And so just understanding that piece is really awesome. And so it kind of goes through, and like, just so you guys know, like the start of approval, it pretty much starts the approval and then waits for everybody to come. And I think those things are extremely important to understand, because as you're going through and you're creating your flow, you want to make sure that your flow is working best for you, and that your flow is getting out to the right people at that right time. So like understanding kind of what the approvals are and kind of what all these different things are is extremely important. So of course you open up the flow thing, as you guys know. And so the next thing is, of course, now we have to select the condition that like we want to start the approval. And so something that, like, when I first started flow, like I didn't necessarily, I didn't do the drop downs. I didn't go and I didn't play in here, but it's definitely something really, really awesome to kind of get that understanding, because like everybody must approve or first to respond are like two totally different things that can make a big difference kind of within your role. So understanding those things can make your approvals process just run so much more smoothly. And so from there, next, like we wanted to make sure that we kind of popped out like the title and the sign, and of course you see the stars, and so of course they are required. And then of course, like like you can go down and do like the markdown fields, and we can kind of do just some additional stuff in there that further customizes it for you. And so I'm always big on, like, I think that's the really great thing about flow is that they kind of have all these different actions. And so even though these actions are kind of like boxed, and so you might think just because it's in a template it's boxed in, but it's not really boxed in. It allows you to go in and customize your experience for your end users. And so from there, we go here and it says the approvals like will be set under these conditions. And so I feel like conditions are extremely, extremely kind of important to understand, because they make sure that, like once you send out the approval, that the right information is getting to the right people at the right time. And so kind of going from there, of course, you go in, you edit the box. It's something that we just want to make sure end users know and understand. But something I do want to point out up here is that you're the person who's kind of in control of like save you based off your response, based off your outcomes, saying that these things, like this is the conditions for that. And I think that this is really awesome because it breaks down, I would say, like some engineering logic, but it's in a very readable sentence. And so understanding those things are extremely, extremely important. So the next thing I think is extremely important as I scroll down on the screen is to, and this is something I also really like about WalkMe, is that if I can go scroll down, it always pops back up there. So you can do a lot on the screen and it's still there. But something I think is really, really great is that you're able to like go in there and based off those conditions, send specific emails or send something saying like, hey, your approve has been, your request has been approved, or you can say like, great job, or anything that's best for your end user or for your company. And so I think these things are extremely important because they allow you to kind of be the voice of your company and help empower people to be able to kind of go in there to do an approval. And so, of course, from there, we go back through that general process of like pushing save, like going through the flow checker, of course, and making sure X out and making sure that you test the flows. I won't test the flows in front of you because these will go to my manager who's actually not sitting here right in front of me, so she'll be kind of confused. But I think the really great thing about like understanding and like having these different pop-ups is that it kind of like, I know some of these topics are in some ways a little bit more difficult or complex. And so what it does is it allows, I would say, people who might not be very new to flow to kind of jump in. And like I'm a kinesthetic learner, or like somebody who kind of learns as doing. And so it really empowers people to learn as they go. And so I have a little more to kind of show you guys. So let's go back to my flows.
I think maybe what we should do is now we should kind of flip it and
Okay.
we should show like how it looks when you make one of these,
Yeah, no,
right?
Yeah, I think that would be absolutely, absolutely awesome. So we can actually kind of go in and create from a blank or from an instant flow for this one. So again, so this is just so you guys. John kind of gave like a quick overview of the WalkMe tool, but the WalkMe tool is pretty awesome from the perspective that I feel like it's fairly easy to use. And so what I've been doing is I've been working in smart walkthroughs. And so what smart walkthroughs are kind of what you guys have been seeing. So it has these pop-up bubbles that point to something specific, so that as the end user, you're able to go in and just be able to say, okay, this is what this is. So the first process, I would say first step one is fairly simple. You just press, the start button. And so we'll say John's show, and you go in there and you just name it.
Oh no, this is Raven's show right
Oh,
now.
I'm just a guest on it, but you guys will be seeing John probably a lot more than me. But the process for going in and creating a WalkMe, I feel like it's fairly simple. So of course you start with the plus button, and they have all these different things that you can kind of do within there. But the area that I work in most is kind of the steps. And so what the steps as you go in, and like this is I think the coolest, interesting thing about WalkMe is that say if you wanted to go and say, hey, we want somebody, the copy and paste feature, which is really awesome. So it's like click my copyboard. So it's like, hey, select the clipboard to copy and paste, right? And so pretty much from there, I can say, hey, next step. So then it's like, okay. Say you want to go and I want to bring out to somebody with an action, for example. So we're like, hey, well, we're going to actually do triggers first. And so we're going to say, hey, like if you want to start your flow, select the trigger. So you go and you click on there and it's like, select trigger to start a flow. So we're just going to press done here. And so I would say the really, really cool thing about WalkMe is that the only thing I would say the big thing is you have to do is go in and press play. So as you go and you press play, it's like select the clipboard, right? Going back here, and then you go back here. And this is just something I have to go back in really quickly to do something. So something really, I would say awesome about WalkMe is that you can kind of go in and press different ones. And so what I did was I pressed one that said select. And so since I pressed one that said select, you have to press select and it takes you away from that page. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to do like a step triggers. And so instead of having it as you're actually selecting it or you're typing it or you're doing something else, I'm actually going to have to press next so that you guys can kind of see it as it goes. And so I'm going to go back into this one and press next too, just so you guys can kind of see them go back to back. And go. So I'm going to press done. And we're going to press save because save is always very, very important. I'm telling you, I've lost so many like homework assignments.
Flow teaches you that save is important.
Yes, it does. Like I growing up, like you forget. Like I guess it's so easy to like get like lost. It's like doing what you're doing, so they kind of get lost in the sauce, and you're like, oh, I'm working on this, I'm working on that, and then you didn't save, and so somebody comes up, they interrupt you, your computer dies, like anything can happen, and you're like, oh my god, what happened to my stuff? So,
Yep.
got it. Okay, let's see, go back in. So let's go here and press reload. Open WalkMe. So. Oh, we couldn't find the step. Got to make sure. Let's go back in and reselect it.
This
So
is good. It kind of shows how you work your way through it. You can keep going. I just was,
yeah,
I like how it kind of shows the way that you can select all the elements and choose the transitions. It's pretty neat.
but yeah, no, I definitely think it's really an awesome tool because it allows you to like go in and like make something very custom for like your
Mm,
different experiences. And on top of it being very custom, you're able to kind of go in and like all the way down to like the last level and like decide like where you want these things to point to. And you
mm-hmm.
want to actually like go into the CSS and like actually change it to even like further like make it fit you. And so So then we go and it says like select copy the clipboard to copy and paste. And just if you guys haven't checked out this feature, it's really, really awesome. So going from there, and then you can go here and it jumps down there. But I think the really awesome thing about WalkMe is that I feel like this took me like 10 minutes, like not even 10 minutes, like 4 seconds to really do.
Yeah.
So it's like, you kind of get to map out your own success in a way. So it's like you're able to kind of have like this blank canvas. And like, I'm not a big artist, but I feel like through WalkMe, like I can kind of put different things to help people and empower people to understand a platform and a tool, which I feel like in a way is kind of an art within itself. It's not like you're drawing or painting on anything on the on the flow, of course, but you are doing things, or you're adding different things to the UI that helps empower people. And I feel like that's kind of an art within itself because it helps people see things within flow that you might have not been able to see before. And so I think that that's something that's extremely awesome about WalkMe is it kind of pops out things that like I might have not been able to notice before. And so I would say the last thing that I wanted to kind of show you guys is kind of like the initiators. And so I think the thing that makes like WalkMe extra, I would say special, is the fact that you can kind of go in and create your own launchers. So we're just going to say this is a test and we're going to go in here. And as we go in, let's continue. I probably have this name before. Say John show. Oh, I'm gonna go. I have an idea. John slash Raven.
There you go. Boom.
There we go. See, it worked out well. So you're gonna press or select on this, and we're gonna say save. And so now what it's going to do is it's going to kind of take us to this area where we're actually able to kind of go in. And so say if we wanted to go in and like change the launcher, for example. Now there's so many different ways that you can kind of have it. You can have WalkMe, you can have question marks, you can kind of have the own like patient stop. You can even kind of change the colors to best kind of fit your thing. I like purple a lot because it's the color royalty. So we can go ahead and push OK on that. But then the other awesome thing too is that you can kind of say like when or how do you want it to like come out. So it's like, do you want it always? Do you want it on the hover? Do you want, say, like when we go down to like the appearance, you can like go in and like mess with these different components. I'm not gonna mess with them in front of you guys because I don't want to mess with anybody else's work.
No, it's cool though.
Yeah, who might be actually
It's like you're building a workflow for the workflow.
Yes.
Right? Like you're kind of like you're building a trigger action and then subsequent actions. It's like you're outlining a workflow on top of the flow workflow. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, no, I think
it's flowception.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I definitely think it's absolutely awesome for that because I think it empowers, like for me, it allows you to kind of go in and like be creative and do all these different things. And I think something really awesome too is that you can kind of pick and choose kind of when you want it to do. So you can actually go in here and create rules. And so something that I really like about WalkMe is like these rules aren't, I would say, like high level. Like I feel like anybody can kind of pick up on them. So it says on the screen element. So we go to the screen element, we might press here again, right? You can say it's visible, it's not visible, exists. Like you can give all these different criteria for like when it will pop up. And so say if I say when it's visible, then we added the rule, and so you can now do done. And so now when this element is visible, you can see that. So when we go and press save and we go back out to here and we run it in preview. And it's generating, it's kind of, I guess it's thinking, it's trying to figure out everything. And so when these things are visible, the stuff is coming up on the screen. So
nice.
And so now you can go and you can press it, and now it's saying select clipboard when this is happening in there. So it kind of just pops up for you. And so that's something I think it's really awesome. And it's that kind of, once it's done, kind of like flow, you can just use it over and over and over again to do the same things. And so on here, different WalkMes are popping up just because I have other WalkMes that are that are linked on here. So there are a lot of things are popping up. But I think that that's just something awesome within there. So those are kind of the things that I think are really great and awesome about WalkMe. I hope everybody kind of, especially like new users, as you guys get in there, that you guys start utilizing it and playing around with it, because I feel like it will help open up just your understanding of flow and just understanding just some of the cool things that you can do, as well as I feel like it'll answer a lot of questions, because like I'm a big like community reader. And so a lot of times like when you're new to, especially to a product, and you're trying to understand kind of how perks, I feel like this will definitely be a great tool to kind of guide you through that experience and without you having to go through and read a lot of documentation. Because like I'm an avid believer that a lot of people don't like to read anymore. And people like to just like go on YouTube and watch it be done. Like, and so I feel like WalkMe is helping people get closer to that.
All right. Well, awesome. So you guys got to now see Raven's. Oh, Raven, your video turned off again. Your camera's not on. You guys now got to see Raven's intern project here, and you got to see the builder side of WalkMe, and you also got to see the experience side of WalkMe. Now, a couple of disclaimers. One, this is all in development. It's like way before preview. It's like alpha. And so keep in mind that the experiences you saw today may not be the final experiences that ship. But what I do want you to get from this is Raven has put in a bunch of time this summer into trying to understand how people are using Flow, how new users are experiencing Flow. So when you start seeing the Walk Me buttons appearing in Flow, you'll now know what to expect. And you'll also know to not be afraid to go and check them out. And the last thing you'll think of is, oh man, that cool chick Raven made those. So, Raven, thanks so much for, number one, joining the team this summer and building this experience to help new users. That's rad. And thank you, number two, for coming on the show and sharing it all so well and talking about your experience with it. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. This summer has been really, really awesome. And like the Flow team, I feel like it's like a Flow family, almost in a way, just because there's so many great people and great minds that all come together to build this great product.
Yo, hashtag FlowFam.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, that's it. You know what to do. Go ahead and click like. If you got some value from this video, go ahead and subscribe so that you don't miss another episode. Much love from me. See you guys in the next one.
See you guys. Bye.